Shelton?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In terms of the addendum, we have two items. The first one is a second deputation related to item number 2, which is regarding the Magna Center fitness upgrade proposal. And the second one is on item 7, which deals with the Water Street crossing. Staff will do a brief presentation ahead of the report.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Could I please have a motion then to have these additions added to the agenda? Councillor Sponga, Councillor Bazans, all those in favour? That is carried. Thank you. Are there any declarations of pecuniary interest? Councillor Hempen?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'll be declaring a conflict on item number 4 as it relates to potentially incentivizing Davis Drive properties and redevelopment, as I own a property that is in that corridor. I own 2 properties, one at 232 Penn Avenue and one at 20 Hill. Thank you.
Thank you. Any others? There are no presentations or recognitions. We do have 2 deputations. The first one is Sabrina Rosale, Sabrina's Pizzeria. If you could come forward, we provide up to 5 minutes. I have received a copy of your notes, and I will ask that you limit your comments to be focused on the municipality. I can't permit any personal references. The discussion here is between yourself and the council of the town of Newmarket. So some of these comments I believe are out of order, and I'd like you to give some consideration as to addressing the facts of the issue. Okay?
Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor and members of council. I am Sabrina Rosale, current operator of the restaurant Sabrina's Pizzeria.
Could you move a little closer to the microphone, please? Thank you.
I am Sabrina Rosale, current operator of the restaurant Sabrina's Pizzeria Bar and Grill, located inside the Magna Center. This will mark our 9th year as a business-vendor relationship.
Sorry. Yep. If you.
I would like to ask Mr. Mayor to consider my losses if my lease is terminated early. In my original lease, it states that the term of this agreement shall be for a minimum period of 5 years and not to extend 10 years. Proponent shall provide for an option to renew the contract in 5-year intervals. In August 2014, our company was awarded the contract RFP 2014-04 and presented me with an amendment to my original contract with various points. Specifically, in this amendment, it states that the tenant shall have and hold the premises for and during a period of this time, which shall be, unless sooner terminated pursuant to the provisions of the original lease or the landlord's RFP. The period of the time which shall commence on June 1st, 2014 and shall expire on May 31st, 2016, the term. The term may be extended for 3 one-year extensions upon agreement of both parties. Mr. Service has been...
Now this is where I ask you to stop, and I won't accept personal references, okay? So what you can do is say that it's been brought to your attention that the lease expired May 2016. So again, the individual references is not acceptable here. This is a discussion with this council. Okay?
Use town instead.
Okay. However, it's brought to my attention that the expiry will be May 2016. However, as you can see yourself, the terms of the contract is very vague. It doesn't specify what it means by 2 parties agreeing to extend the terms. It doesn't say anywhere in the contract what the case would be if one party agrees to extend the contract for another year. In particular, the town represented the RFP as a 5-year term in the bidding system. Mr. Mayor, I challenge you to find a legitimate complaint in the 9 years that I've been in business and explain why you won't renew my lease. During our 9-year business vendor relationship, all my renewals have been renewed since 2008. In the last council meeting, it was stated that I was warned 2 times, which is false. I was not warned at all. My regular customer on December 4th told me that I was on the media and the restaurant will be changed into a gym. If I'd just known about this plan before, I would have never invested a lot of money in my equipment or overall in my business. I could have got away with fixing equipment that could have cost me a couple of hundred rather than a few thousands of dollars. The rent that I'm currently paying is $46,334.67 and not $35,000. My total lease is $231,673.28, payable to the town of Newmarket.
Can you use the name as a certain?
Just a reference to it being turned into a gym. I did some homework myself, and I found that other municipalities, like the town of Ajax, has delayed their expansion for the gym that they wanted to build at the Audley Community Center because there's not enough members joining in their other community centers. And right now they're offering 6 months free membership, and that shows that there's no interest. There's almost 10 gyms, and there's about 10 local gyms in the area, and they offer better accommodations than what the town is proposing. Maximum Gym is a local gym close by, and their membership starts at $26 per month. If the town is choosing to match these prices, I don't think you'll be making any money. If you do, it'll be after the 10-year mark. I've just lost a lot of money throughout this past few weeks. I lost a contract deal with a catering company because of this decision. They told me that I won't be here no longer in January, so they canceled my catering for this coming tournament that I have. And that's just one of the costs that there's so many more. I got canceled Christmas parties, birthday parties, because people are just choosing to go somewhere else because they've heard that I won't be here in January. And there's just a list of stuff that I would like to get back as a compensation. My security deposit, I want that up front because with my last exit, it wasn't given to me on time. And there was just unjustified fees from my last security deposit that wasn't paid, so I just want that to be paid. You'll see in the list that what I've had, and I actually had a meeting with the director on the 12th, and it was at Mr. Coomer's home, and we had a private meeting, and we talked about how we can negotiate it before it gets where it is now. And the director agreed on the 3 of the points that I have here, about my return of my $10,000, the $1,500, and the other 2%. The other stuff we're negotiating, and I haven't heard back from him.
Thank you. Are there any questions of clarification from any members of council? It would be appropriate to receive this deputation. Then Councillor Sponga, clarification?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Sabrina, I had an opportunity to read your deputations and also get some clarity around the lease agreement that you entered in with the municipality. I have 2 questions of clarification. First, do you have legal representation in terms of your lease?
I have spoken to a lawyer.
Okay. Do you have a lawyer in retainment now? Do you have somebody that you're working with right now? Okay.
Yes.
So first of all, have your attorneys had an opportunity to review the lease agreement?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And those claims that you're making right now in terms of the discharge of the lease and potential expenditures that you've concurred and weren't aware, or the terms, as you referred to in the deputation now, of the lease being vague, have you had some legal advice on that basis?
Yes.
And
Okay.
are you, one final
I guess
clarification, just because it frames how much we can discuss this or not, are you taking legal actions against the town?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
That's fine. Okay. Thank you. Any further questions of clarification? Motion then to receive this deputation. Councillor Sponga. I need a seconder.
I'll second it.
Councillor Hempin. All those in favor? Motion carried. Thank you. Next deputant is Mr. Stephen Rakovic. Stephen, we grant up to 5 minutes.
My name is Stephen Rokovich from Master Fitness and Squash Complex in Newmarket. I'd like to address council and mayor on how I feel about this proposal. I don't agree with the proposal. I don't think that the town should get involved in matters of this nature, considering there's many small businesses that currently exist within the town. And in my letter that I've written, I don't know if everyone's received a copy of it, but I come to explain that it's a family-run and owned business that's operated in Newmarket by myself and my wife. We had decided to reopen it because it was a family-run business, and we are in that same type of business. I've been involved in it for 22 years myself, and I just feel that the tax dollars that are going towards this project could be better spent and better used, and that there should be some type of partnership created with small businesses in the town. And I just wanted to make everyone aware that we are a small business, we do exist, and we do operate within the town. We've been doing it for the last year, we've got positive results, and we would like to continue forward, but I just don't feel that you should involve yourself in that type of business.
Okay, and you've circulated your notes to all members of council?
It was left on the table. I don't know if everyone has received
all right.
it.
So we'll make sure that members of council receive your notes as well then.
Okay.
All right, are there any questions or clarification? Councillor Kerwin?
Just a comment. I did phone Master Fitness. I was a member of that club for 37 years, from the day Joe opened it on September the 1st until he closed it on April the 30th, 2013, and it was a family-run business, and it was excellent, and I'm glad you're back in that building, running it as a family-run business. Rather than the big masters that I now belong to, I joined LA Fitness. Mm-hmm. I must say I went to the one on the Green Lane, and I wasn't happy with the way it was run, and I'm now at the LA Fitness on Bayview, so I'm well aware of fitness institutes.
Well,
Thank you.
I'd like to welcome you back, and I hope to see you again. And any other member of council.
Okay, yeah, this is, we don't want this to get into a sales promotion.
No, I'm
but
not
thank you.
selling. I'm just saying.
Any other questions or clarification? Could I have a motion then to receive the deputation? Councillor Kerwin, Councillor Vague, all those in favor? That is carried. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Now we've any items within items number 2 to 23 that members of council wish to deal with separately. Councillor Twinney?
5, please.
Okay. Regional councillor?
2, 4, 6, 7, and 20.
And 20. Okay. Any other items? Could I have a motion then? Just a sec. Could I have a motion then? Yep. I have a motion then to adopt by consent items number 3, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, right through to 19, as well as item number 21, 22, 23. No, 23 is can be dealt with by consent unless you wish to have outstanding matters.
There's an outstanding matter of land purchase,
Okay.
and I need to comment on it.
Okay, so we'll deal with that then separately as well. Could I have a motion then to deal with those items by consent? Councillor Pazans, Councillor Smaga, all those in favor? And that is carried. Good. First item is item number 2. I would ask members of council that there is a provision for a closed session. Does any member of council wish to have a closed session discussion prior to dealing with item number 2?
I would.
Okay, then we'll set item 2 aside.
possible we move it up in the agenda, or no? Because we have people from the audience waiting for the
And
discussion and decision.
yeah, we can do that and go into the Mullock room. Do you want to do that? What are the other items there that we're dealing with? Site plan review and outstanding matters. Actually, I think we can do that and come back. It doesn't look like, is there anyone here that's here as a result of wanting to find the outcomes of items number 4, 5, 6, 7, 20 or 23? Number 6? It's the artificial turf field. Okay, what I'll do then is, given that we do have a number of people here that wish to see a decision on item number 2, I'll take a motion to resolve into an in-camera session in order that we can receive legal advice. Councillor Sponga, seconded by Councillor Bizance. All those in favor? Any opposed? Okay, that's carried. So what we'll do is we'll go to a separate area and receive some legal advice regarding this matter. Yep. Yeah, for the benefit of the audience, we're leaving this room, so you don't need to leave the room, so we'll Okay, I'll call the meeting back to order. Next item on our agenda then is item number 2, Committee Services, Recreation, and Culture, report number 2015-37, and that is the Magna Leases and Potential Fitness Center, which was referred from December 14th. There are recommendations before us. Could I have a motion with respect to the regional councillor?
Thanks very much. Yeah, I'd like to move recommendation number 1 as it is, and I'd like to add a recommendation that staff report back to committee on options for the kitchen and kiosk spaces, including expanded fitness center in the kitchen area and or maintaining a hot dog food kiosk or food kiosk, whatever term you want. But I can speak to it more detail.
Okay. Do we have a seconder?
I'll second it.
Okay, Councillor Hempen, speaking as the mover. Regional councillor.
Thank you very much. I do support the direction staff is recommending that we move towards a fitness facility at this location. I think that it's very synergistic with the kinds of offerings that are in that facility now, and would really provide a complete fitness experience for many individuals and families. And we've certainly heard from people through the Recreation Playbook that this is something they wanted us to consider. And I have heard a number of people provide comments of that nature in the interim. As well as the opportunity to help to generate some revenue to allow us to do more of what we like to do in that space. So I very much support moving in this direction. The recommendation I added was really to say that I think staff have put forward a very good rationale and a good business case in relation to to that space being a fitness facility. The kitchen, the concept of the kitchen being used potentially for cooking classes or other opportunities of that nature is understandably a little less fleshed out as the focus was on the fitness facility. I'm still having a little bit of difficulty understanding exactly what would occur in that scenario and what the business case is, and whether it makes more sense to put in a slightly fuller fitness facility and ensure success, or whether this is synergistic and that space is not needed, or what other space would be needed. And secondly, I am somewhat concerned, particularly around major events. This past weekend, there was a hockey tournament that involved dozens of teams from the United States and dozens of teams from all over Ontario and Quebec, et cetera. To not have some ability to perhaps on at least special or larger occasions or events like that to have some for lack of a better word, pop-up type, but maybe the analysis will lead to the kiosk not remaining. Maybe it'll lead to it remaining in a permanent fashion. Maybe it'll lead to it remaining in an event-based fashion. But I would like to explore that a little bit more before letting go of that. So I believe the recommendation I'm putting forward allows staff to move forward in the planning and implementation, that the timeline that they feel is necessary on the fitness facility, but would allow council to get a further report in running concurrently with the other work to let us know what options we have related to the kitchen, classes, and the kiosk. And that's the intent of the second recommendation.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hempen is the seconder.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I also am supporting this direction and recommendations in front of us. This is not a standalone building where we're opening up a recreational facility. It's a facility that's well used by our community, and we offer many services there, from swimming classes to swimming, and we have a walking track. We offer skating, and I think this just kind of ties it together, and it'll offer a lot of seniors who, I'm a regular visitor of the Magna Center, and I see many seniors using the walking track and using the swimming, and this will just add to that full complement and letting people have the opportunity to do some strengthening of their body, and it's a good thing in my opinion. I'd also like staff to explore looking into working with the existing vendor so that they have the opportunity to maybe take advantage of providing further services and further food options to the public out there, and that we're not all of a sudden going to be creating another competition for somebody who's there on a full-time basis.
Thank you. Councillor Kerwin.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I, from day one, have been in favor of this center being all-inclusive. The town of Newmarket and the taxpayer really have invested $40 million in the Magna Center. By the time we pay off the mortgage and so forth, maybe more. And the entire population has the right to use that facility to the best purpose that we can make it. And it was identified in the recreational playbook that this is an added use that we can add to the Magna Center. It just, to me, makes sense. But what I saw on New Year's Eve on December the 31st, there were literally thousands of people out there in the Magna Center participating. And our council was there as well. It really is a meeting place. And I've been involved in fitness centers since I came to town. And this is just adding an extension. It's taken us a few years to find our niche here. And we're finding it constantly. We're evolving. And I compliment staff for bringing forth an imaginary, evolving type of plan for this center. It's a heavy investment of the town. You know, we went through 3 different councils to get where we are. We bought the land. We involved the citizens to create this. We involved the citizens again to create the playbook, the master playbook, and this is what they're telling us. They want us to move forward with something additional that's added to this facility. We included basketball in this facility. We included a track. We built the Olympic-sized rink, and now we find it's great for speed skating and long skating and many other things we didn't even realize that we could use this facility for. So I just think it's the evolution of a fitness, not a fitness center, but a meeting place. That's exactly what Newmarket is. And these people will go there and they will discuss what's happening in Newmarket. I think it's just great the way we're moving, and I compliment the staff for thinking outside the box and taking time to do it thoroughly.
Thank you. Councillor Sponga.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I initially was opposed to this idea, and I still have some reservations, but I've taken the time to do a bit of research and to try to get some more information around this. I had an opportunity to speak with both with the municipalities of the towns of Aurora and Bradford, who presently already have municipally run gyms, and also spoke with EG in terms of whether they would consider something, this type of program as well. I was quite surprised to hear that both in the towns of Aurora and Bradford, these facilities have been very well received by the taxpayers, actually, and the users. And but my concern again was how potentially this type of activity would impact private operators. I was quite surprised to hear from their economic development groups, the municipalities, that actually they are not aware of any gyms that are closed as a result of municipalities getting involved in this type of activity, but actually they're continuing to see the proliferation of private gyms, both in Bradford and in Aurora. So given, and as I said, then in the past, and been quoted, and I said that this would be a considerable shift in philosophy for the town of Newmarket. I guess in reading some of the responses and the input that we received from our residents through the master playbook process, I guess that yes, this is a change in philosophy, but there is also a change in attitude from our residents and the type of facilities that they want to see. And it was clear in that documentation and that input that this is something that the residents in the market would support at this point. So I will be voting in favor of the motion in front of us. I think I want to reiterate some of the comments made by Councillor Hempin. I would hope that there is an opportunity for the present vendor to work, and for our staff to work with them and see that if we do move forward with some type of concession, additional concession space in that area, that those vendors have an opportunity to respond to whatever might be bids, RFP, or so forth. So again, I hope that there's an opportunity for them down the line as well. So thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Twinney.
Thank you. I will be supporting the motion that's put forward. I along with Councillor Spunga, did have some reservations at first. I'm still not, I guess, maybe 100% convinced that there's a business case there that's going to support this financially, but I do feel that as a municipality, we are there to offer services, and I think a service of having a fitness center in that location is certainly going to be beneficial to the residents that use that facility, dropping off kids for swimming lessons. I think there are going to be people using that facility that perhaps would not be exercising without it being there, because they'll be able to use it while perhaps their children are using other facilities. And alongside our gym and our swimming facility, I think it's going to be an added benefit. I do think, though, that we should be looking at. We do have a kiosk already there that's serving food, and I, you know, from someone that uses that facility with my son, I know that the residents there are always looking for options for eating as well. So I think we need to look at something. What it might be, I'm not 100% sure, but I look forward to hearing what comes back. But I don't think it should jeopardize on the size of the facility either, because I think if we end up getting it too small, and then it won't be able to be used to its fullest. So it'll be interesting to see what comes back, but I will be supporting the motion.
Thank you. Councillor Bazans.
Yes, thank you. I would also like to speak in favor of the motion with a couple of comments. First of all, I really appreciate the innovative ideas that have come through the Recreation Playbook, and a lot of those ideas have come because of public input. And I think that, you know, at the end of the day, that's something that we always want to be able to demonstrate, how we're responding to what our residents are asking for, how our residents want to see their tax dollars spent. So a lot of the items in the Recreation Playbook, I think, have taken shape because of that input, and this is one of those ideas. I think that we've got a tremendous opportunity to be very innovative with how we use this space and build on what we already have at the Magna Center. Just as an example, last night I used the track. I do run on the track when the weather is as nasty as it was yesterday and today. And for the first time ever, I ran with a young lady who had her service dog with her. And the three of us actually ran around the track, and it struck me that our facility offers something that I don't know that other facilities currently offer, and that's that ability to truly respond to accessibility needs. And, you know, I sit on the Newmarket Accessibility Council, so perhaps I'm just a little more, I have heightened awareness of some of those things that otherwise I wouldn't have thought about, but it really struck me that we have an opportunity to make this new facility accessible in different ways, and I don't just mean that so people can get in and out and then they've got a parking spot close to the door, but accessible in different ways. The other thing that struck me is that certainly on the track there are a lot of very elderly seniors who use that track just to walk. There was a lovely couple, a gentleman and his wife, who were walking very slowly around the track, but you know they were using it for that purpose, because I don't think that they're the ones that you're going to find jogging on the treadmill in other areas. So I'm hoping that with this initiative we're also going to be very seriously looking at how we can maximize accessibility and activities for a very different population in addition to the regular population. The other thing I just want to point out, and I raised this question this morning when we were talking about the budget, so I just wanted to just emphasize or perhaps re-emphasize the answer that I received from the Treasurer with respect to the funding for this. that this predominantly the funding would come through DCs with some financing through an internal loan, so that it will not affect our, as I understand, it will not affect our tax base for this year. And that's a very important consideration for me as well. So it's using funding we have for the purpose that funding was intended, without adding that additional burden. And then the third point that I'd just like to make is to echo that whatever we do, I also agree that we do need to be providing some kind of additional concession there, because as we know, there are a lot of events and parents who are sort of sitting around watching their kids play, and kids come off the ice or out of the swimming pool. Not everybody wants to spend $29 for a muffin. So I think that there's a need for some lower cost alternatives of nutritious food. And, you know, sort of in keeping with that health and fitness element, I would be very supportive of looking at how we could also incorporate an additional concession in there. But ultimately, I do support this, and I'm looking forward to further innovation around accessibility and that additional concession.
Thank you. Councillor Big, and then Commissioner.
Thank you. I've expressed before that I did have reservations about this, particularly on the financial model that was brought forward to Council on this fitness center, with the margins being very, very thin on this model being brought forward. To remind Council and the public, were about 1.7. If we're off our projections by financial projections by 1.7% on the revenues and the costs, even after 3 years, it doesn't break even, let alone turn a profit. That being said, that's really, in terms of municipalities providing recreational and other services also, when we think they're of value to the community, value to our residents, we do subsidize these services. And if it turns out that these margins were too thin and it's going to take us longer to reach our targets, at this point, so be it, because I do believe it is a service that will be used and a valuable service. Also, there really is a trend, and not just in recreation, but it's in social services, it's in business, it's in other industries too, to start moving towards what we, and Christina would know about this, but towards a hub model, and to provide as many related services or services that people that are likely to, if they use one service, are likely to use another service, all under one roof. And that has to do with convenience. It's not always the most efficient economic model, but certainly it's the most efficient service model, and you do get the best results from that model. And I think this is keeping in line with that trend. Finally, just a comment. The facility is going to be located in Ward 1. For people to use facilities like a fitness center or any recreational facility, proximity does play a role in that. So I do know, and I have heard from my residents here in Ward 1, that they are excited and looking forward to having this type of fitness option so close to them. And also when we speak of proximity, we're also talking about people who visit the center for other reasons and able to see this and say, well, maybe instead of sitting in the stands and watching my kids skate back and forth on drills, maybe I'll go in there for 30 minutes. So proximity plays a role in that too when it comes to fitness. So I'll be supporting this. I do have reservations, but nevertheless, I do feel that the benefits of this, both to the community and both locally to Ward 1, the benefits easily outweigh the reservations that I have.
Thank you. Mr. McDougall.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a brief comment just before you get to calling the question, just for Council to consider. Councillor Bazan's quite accurately articulated the funding sources and the fact that it's coming from development charges and a small internal loan. One of the things, as Councillor would recall from this morning's session, the Treasurer had indicated that there is the opportunity in the event that Councillor would consider this initiative to include it in the 16 budget formally. Right now it's been referenced but not formally included, so it could be a consideration for Council to do it all as part of this process. So it would be then included in the budget that Council would see at Council next Monday. Thank you.
That makes some sense. Given the consensus that we have, it might be appropriate perhaps to add an item number 3, and that would be that the funding be added to the capital budget for 2016. Okay, I'll check to the mover and the seconder. Regional Councillor? As the mover, do you see that as a friendly amendment?
Again, I mean, procedurally, does it get referred to budget, or how does, I mean, can we
We could just,
committee the whole, or just adding the line to be approved later, or how does that, I don't know.
what would the most efficient approach be, Mr. Sheldon?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think you could move that it be included in the draft budget that is going to council for approval next Monday.
Okay, that's good. Friendly? Okay, that's good. Okay, thank you. I think we've had some great conversation about this and some good dialogue, and I want to compliment staff on rounding out our portfolio as far as recreational wellness facilities go. I'm also very optimistic that this may give us an opportunity to be proactive with our hospital, so that we would have some preventive programs for their cardiac rehab programs and pre-cardiac programs. So I think that it offers a lot of potential there as well. So without question, I will be supporting this as well. Given that we've had all this discussion, I'll call the question. All those in favor of the recommendations as amended? Any opposed? That is carried. Thank you. Next item is item number 4. Item number 4 is our Economic Development and Infrastructure Services Planning Report and Corporate Services, and it's relative to the targeted marketing program for the Davis Drive properties. Is this the one that we're having a presentation for, Mr. Sheldon? No? Okay. So we have some recommendations. Could I have a motion with respect to what's being recommended? Regional Councillor. Okay, moved by Regional Councillor, seconded by? Councillor Bizans. Okay, Regional Councillor, you wish to speak to this?
Thanks. I just have a couple of quick questions for staff. No major concerns. I guess the one thing I want to state, first of all, is that the first recommendation, I think, is very important, and I'm glad it is the first recommendation. But looking at a very targeted list of sites to be identified and owners, landowners, et cetera, to be engaged in discussion, and I think is crucial. Do we intend to? I mean, I know we've had discussions like this before, and I know we could certainly assemble it. But do we intend to put together some collateral material and a bit of a strategy and some information, as the mayor alluded to earlier, but also some a bit of a sales proposition to go to? And would the idea be that some of it would be generic, but some of it would be specific to each sort of outreach that we might engage in?
Mr. McDougall?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, through you to the Regional Councillor, Deputy Mayor. That is, in fact, the case where each property owner that would be referenced or included as part of consideration around recommendation number 1, each one has very specific development opportunities, and so we would want to make sure that in those conversations that that conversation is as customized as possible to help understand fully, their challenges and their opportunities for development, and trying to help get them to advance their plans. That being said, though, the second recommendation speaks specifically to a process that would also be going on in concert with the first recommendation, where there would be some very specific internal reviews going on and packages being developed for the longer term implementation around development approval processes and timelines and communication practices, and then as well looking at aligning available resources today and potentially looking at future allocation of resources as it relates to funding mechanisms or incentives. So there would be certainly some things that would have to happen specifically around implementing the first recommendation, but as well on the bigger picture and the longer term, there'd have to be a lot of work that goes into it that relates more specifically to recommendation number 2.
Thank you. Councillor Bizans? Sorry. All right.
Go ahead. A couple questions.
Go ahead. Yeah. No, go ahead.
Thanks. The other question I had was, I recognized that in one place there was a reference to trying to look at new or enhanced engagements on a site-specific proposals with the community, which I fully support. Having said that, I also see a reference here to, in top of page 13, to how to advance community engagement, and I don't know if it means in terms of the site-by-site issue. And then I see on page 12 at the top, it says, number 1, goals that were identified, build excitement and support for the intensification of Davis Drive. And I guess I'm wondering what that means. And absolutely, the community needs to be engaged in a site-by-site basis and get feedback and understand, et cetera. But in terms of building excitement and support for the intensification of Davis Drive, we've been through a secondary planning process. That plan has set out the intensification for Davis Drive, and many people in Newmarket support it, some may not, but I'm not sure about re-engaging in an exercise to build excitement and support for that, unless it was more referring to the business community or the individual landowners that we want to deal with. So I guess I'm looking for clarification on that.
Mr. Callio.
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. One of the things that has come out through many of our conversations, in particular with our community collaborative ecosystem group, is that residents maybe don't know a lot of the activities that are happening on the corridor, such as our potential for broadband, such as Create It Now. And we want to, it's more of a public relations, not community consultation so much, is to let and celebrate successes on the corridor, which will help our residential and our business community both really get excited about what the potential 5 years, 10 years out is for that corridor. So that's what the intent was. We feel we need to engage residents and other businesses to let them know exactly all the things that are happening on the corridor. So it's separate from actually meeting individually with property owners, but it's more of a broader context to let residents and businesses know why we're doing this on the corridors.
Okay. I guess then I probably prefer, and it's not, and I don't think we need to change the document, but that we're building excitement and support for the redevelopment and renewal of Davis Drive, perhaps, because when I think of intensification, I think of us getting back into the debate over the secondary plan. But again, I would stress that I see by far the greatest emphasis on a strategic site-by-site strategy and less of a pan sort of one that builds that as much. So, but that clarification helps. Thank you.
Targeted marking approach. Yep. Good. Councillor Bazans is the seconder.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, I really believe that this is a priority for the town, and one that we need to start addressing and continue to address with a little bit more fervor. One of the things I've been concerned about for some time is that there's a lot of valuable property on Davis Drive that really isn't doing us a whole lot of, or providing the town itself a whole lot of value in terms of contributing what it should be to the tax base, and also contributing to a real need for alternative, more affordable kinds of housing. One of the questions I had, I recall several years ago through the Chamber of Commerce having some discussions with some of the local businesses who expressed a concern about what they saw there as limiting their growth potential because they couldn't attract the kinds of workers, employees rather, that they needed. And part of the challenge for that was that not everybody that necessarily works in some of those industry sectors are people who are looking to move into single-family dwellings and so forth. So that's certainly something that I think is a compelling element of this proposal as well, that hopefully we're going to be providing the kind of incentives, environment, and to the point about enthusiasm to not only build business opportunities and enhance and market the existing businesses, but also to look at ways in which we can attract new businesses, but also to be providing housing for the people who will work in those businesses. But one of the questions I had with respect specifically to the rapid transit there and so forth now is, would we be looking at some of the things that the city of Markham has done? Because, I know when the rapid transit system was going through there, Highway 7 was a disaster. You avoided Highway 7 at all costs. But now when you drive along Highway 7, not only is it an entirely different environment, but you've got businesses and new buildings, very attractive building up. So there's a feel of a corridor there. And, it'd be interesting to know what some of the things that they've been doing and how they've capitalized on the fact of having a rapid transit system put in there. I mean, Highway 7 now, you want to go there, and you want to live there on that corridor.
Mr. McDougall?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Councillor Bazans. That's a great example of the types of things that need to go on. And again, it goes back to more what's in the second recommendation around working with industry experts in terms of best practices out there, what we can learn from others' successes, and then how we can customize them to fully leverage what we have in Newmarket. So that is certainly something that would need to occur, is to learn from others in terms of what Vaughan's doing, what they're looking at or contemplating, and the Economic Development Officer could explain some of those in more detail. What Markham's doing, even what the City of Toronto has done for many years, and then taking that and trying to put a made in Newmarket context in and reporting back to Council some options for them to consider in terms of advancing this in a responsible manner.
Thank you. Regional Councillor?
Sorry, one thing I wanted to include in my earlier comments and forgot to, but I think it's really important, is that we've had ongoing discussions with Viva, Metrolinx through Viva, since minute one of Davis Drive project about the surplus properties. There are a number of potential renewal opportunities on Davis Drive that are currently locked up in that process, and I think we need to have accelerate our conversations with them to get some clarity about exactly how and when. I find that still a bit fuzzy, and I think that that's an opportunity we really have to now make. I understood that right from early on they said this, they wanted to wait until the project was complete for reasons, financial reasons, that Metrolinx was to a degree imposing, but it is now essentially complete, and so we really need to push those onto the market so we can see those opportunities come to fruition as well.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Sheldon?
Just provide a comment to that, Mr. Mayor. Relative to recommendation 1, we have already started to put together a list of priority properties, and eventually it'll be all the properties, but starting with priority properties. And one of the property owners that we've identified is, in fact, Metrolinx Viva. So that would be compiling the various properties that are in their ownership and having the same sort of meeting with them. We have been meeting with Metrolinx through the process of Viva in terms of properties to be sure that if there are properties that are of special interest to the town or to the hospital or whatever, that they're aware of that, and they would first be consulting with us, but we're not going to wait for that. We will reach out to them just as we would to any other property owner.
Thank you. Well, I'm looking forward to this, and it's great to see that we're going to be very focused and targeted in the way that we want to approach the marketing. Davis Drive provides us with an excellent opportunity for renewal and revitalization, and I'm looking forward to that. Now that the Viva Next is completed, and we've had a very substantial investment, to coin an old phrase, we're all dressed up. Now it's time to go to find a partner for the dance. And I think private enterprise will be the partner, and I think if we get a good sales and marketing program, we'll be able to attract the kind of investments that we've been looking for, which comes out of our initial investment. So I'm looking forward to the opportunities ahead of us. Any further comments? I'll call the question then. All those in favor of the recommendations as amended? Any opposed? Okay. Maybe before we get into other items, we could, we're at 3 o'clock. Let's take a 10-minute break and be back about 3:15. Okay? Okay, I'll reconvene our committee of the whole meeting. The next item is item number 5, Rec and Culture Report number 2016-2, and that's with respect to the Hollingsworth Arena follow-up. Recommendations are before you. I wonder if I could have a motion with respect to the recommendations.
I'll move.
Okay, is there a seconder?
I'll second it.
Okay, Councillor Hempin, Regional Councillor, as the mover.
Thanks. Yeah, I support pursuing this opportunity. It's clear that we're not entirely sure yet whether it'll succeed or not, but I do believe that Hollingsworth is presenting challenges, and Pickering College offers an opportunity to share a facility in the hours essentially that we have it closed currently at Hollingsworth. And so I think at least this will let us know whether this is an option moving forward. So I definitely support pursuing this.
Okay, thank you. Seconder, Councillor Hempin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I'll also be supporting this. I believe it's important that we look at this option and cost sharing with Pickering College, and taking a look at what those options are and what the costings are. Thank you.
Councillor Sponga.
Just wonder, Mr. Mayor, if it's necessary, but I'm just wondering if perhaps maybe a clarification first, question clarification through our staff, Mr. Mayor. In regards to the item 2, and item 2 speaks, and the staff considers other arena location options to be included as part of the discussion at the February Council workshop. And I wonder if I need to ask for an amendment to specifically include, or whether this language already include potentially, in the event that the development proposal doesn't go forward, the Hollingsworth lands as well, through you.
Sorry, I'm not...
The second point says that in the event the Pickering College negotiations do not result in a recommended financial framework, that staff considers other arena locations options to be included as part of discussion of February Council workshop regarding recreation playbook implementation, facility needs / location planning. So I wonder if part of that discussion that also includes potentially the lands at Hollingsworth.
Mr. McDougall?
I could provide further clarification if you wish.
Yes, don't mind, yeah.
Okay, what I mean is that what this says to me, that if it doesn't work, go forward with Pickering College, correct? The financial framework and so forth. The staff will be considering other arena locations, correct? Mm-hmm. So when we look at other arena locations, we know we're going to decommission Hollingsworth the way it is. Are we also going to consider the Hollingsworth land as a potential lands for the replacement of the arena?
Mr. McDougall.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Councillor Sponga. I mean, the land that the Hollingsworth Arena currently sits on is town-owned land. So if we're looking at all of the various inclusions within the playbook and other things, all town land, would be open to consideration. There is also the secondary plan, though, that factors in terms of, that area, as well as the parks planning policy manual that has also been passed by council. So those two would be influencing documents to the extent that it would be considered as recreation facility space, but it is under town ownership at this time.
So am I to understand from your comments, and just wonder if you maybe clarify this better, is that yes, it would be considered, it could be considered as land that could accommodate the replacement arena, but we would also be considering a number of other documents that would prepare, that would set out the framework for a decision on where the arena would go in the event that there was an agreement with Pickering College.
I guess in part, just to clarify here, is that the whole options that we're exploring is as a result of another matter that we're giving some consideration to, and so those things are, while we've tried to separate finding a replacement rink, they are in part related, and so that the influence of what the other project may have, in part, will be a consideration.
I take that as clarification. Yeah, I'll take that as your clarification, Mr. Mayor, as clarification. However, what I'm getting at is that we have made a decision, I think, in terms of decommissioning the arena and moving forward in negotiations with Pickering College. We've not made a decision on whether the development, the proposed private development, is actually going to occur on those lands or not. We have not made a decision around the disposition of land yet. So I would hope that we don't that as part, this is about replacing a facility. This isn't necessarily about selling the lands and dealing with that development. So what I'm saying is we are taking into consideration that we potentially, we never know, we may not be able to get into an agreement with Pickering College, and hence we would have to consider other options to put into in other lands to put our arena in. But by the same token, we may decide not to move forward with the development, with the private, with the disposition of the land at Hollingsworth Arena. That decision hasn't been made yet. So will staff also, in the event that number 2 comes into effect, will we also look at Hollingsworth as a potential site? I'm not saying that the secondary plan, as Mr. McDougall pointed out, or other documents aren't going to have an influence on it, but in all fairness, that disposition of the land has not occurred. Council has not made a decision. So if we're talking about replacing the arena, why not also consider these lands?
I guess in a large measure, Joe, the council workshop that we're planning to go forward into February will give consideration to all of municipal lands and the highest and best use and the most appropriate location of our facilities on a global perspective.
Okay.
And so
that's the answer I was
couldn't necessarily rule it out, but at the same time, I think we're all aware that there are some discussions going on in terms of what the highest and best use of that property might be.
Absolutely, but I'm glad to hear, though, I think I heard it from our commissioner, that exactly the same thing, that all municipally owned land would be considered.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Twinney.
Thank you. I did pull this item. Just to be consistent with past voting on Pickering College, I just feel that we're, personally myself, I feel like we're putting the cart before the horse when we haven't made a decision yet on Hollingsworth, and we're going down a road of already talking about replacing it when we haven't even made that formal final decision yet. So until we get to that point, I don't feel comfortable supporting these recommendations.
Okay. Thank you. Councillor Bazance.
Yes, thank you. I actually have a question with respect to the recommendation number 3 and the potential to have an outdoor artificial surface incorporated as part of the indoor arena replacement scenarios. So does that mean that if we're looking at maintaining a stable of 7 arenas, that we could have 6 indoor and then 1, the 7th being an outdoor arena? And if that's the intent of what this is saying, are there limitations to an outdoor arena that we wouldn't have if we had 7 indoor arenas? In other words, would we be having kind of like 6.5 arenas because you'd only have half as much utility out of an outdoor arena as we would with the 7th being an indoor arena. Now, I recognize that there will be a council workshop, and we're going to get more into the details of this, but just for the purposes of today's discussion and determination, it would help me to better understand that, because I guess I had thought that the idea of the outdoor, a permanent outdoor rink, which a lot of people have expressed some excitement about, was, in my view, a complementary, like an additional to the 7, as opposed to being considered as part of the 7.
Okay. Mr. McDougall?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Bazans. That's actually precisely what's being contemplated, is that the current inventory of indoor ice surfaces is 7. The recommendation in the past, and has been supported by council, is that we continue to maintain 7 indoor ice surfaces. This would be an additional ice surface, an outdoor artificial ice surface that would be really intended for community use, more on a passive level as opposed to a programmed level. And what's referenced in the report really speaks more to the way we would suggest that council would look at potentially constructing and operating that type of facility, in that for it to be a standalone as opposed to being associated with an existing facility. Being partnered with an existing facility allows for the potential to share some of the ice plant mechanicals, technologies, create efficiencies that way, potential staffing efficiencies, and operating efficiencies. So it really is just suggested that as we pursue investigating what was a council direction to look at an outdoor arena, that we do so in such a way that it's linked with an indoor ice surface.
So just again to clarify, so not to be the 7th necessarily, but rather as we consider where and how that might be located, that it would just make sense to put it in juxtaposition with an existing indoor. Okay, got it.
Okay, good. Councillor Sponga.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor, to our staff, just wanted to some clarification. In terms of council's decision making, has council made a decision, what decisions have been made in terms of the Hollingsworth Arena? So has council made a decision to decommission or just to negotiate with Pickering?
Mr. Nohammer?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I can try to address that. So at the last time the development proposal was considered by committee and council, the direction was to request a detailed concept plan of the proponent, and on the condition that the arena function can be replaced, that the land's declared surplus, and that a satisfactory detailed concept plan was provided. And then the town would consider entering into a letter of intent for redevelopment of that site. So those conditions still haven't been met. And further, that a public consultation meeting or public information meeting be held to allow for community input on replacement options for the arena and the detailed concept plan.
So in terms of the decommissioning of the arena, then Councillor Twiney is correct. There hasn't been made no decision has been made in terms of decommissioning the use of Hollingsworth at this time.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that's still a matter that committee and council are considering in light of reviewing the development proposal.
So if the development proposal wasn't to move forward, what would you, I mean, we're talking about here going forward with negotiations with building a replacement arena for Hollingsworth, yet there hasn't been a decision to decommission the arena at Hollingsworth. So are we talking, we're not talking replacement at this point, we're actually talking about additional arena. I'm just trying to get, because then Councillor Kerwin has a very valid point. No decision has been made, so we shouldn't even be entertaining concepts of replacements until we decided to decommission an arena. It would be an additional arena, not a replacement arena.
I think it's, in a large measure, Joe, that's a bit semantics. I think it would be hard to get to a decision on the other one if we didn't know as to whether or not this option is here. So we're exploring options right now and looking at what that might mean. We honestly don't know where those negotiations are going to go. So what the recommendation is here is let's go forward and see if we can find something that works.
I
And we can
appreciate
go-
that, Mr. Mayor.
And it's
My-
still subject to council's final approval, if I recall correctly. So that's where everything stands now, still back to council's final approval.
I appreciate that, Mr. Mayor, and it's a very valid point. However, what I'm concerned with is the fact that this council has not decided to decommission Hollingsworth Arena. So for all intent and purpose, now we have 7 arenas. What we're talking about here is adding an arena, because nobody's made a decision to take Hollingsworth away.
Nor have we made a decision to
Maintain.
finalize a new rink. So they're both on the same plane, Joe, is what I'm saying.
I don't think so, but for that reason, I will not be supporting this option, the recommendation from me.
Okay, thank you. Regional Councillor?
Yeah, to speak to that entire issue, but just speaking from my perspective or the way I see it, and other members of council or not, we're exploring an opportunity at Pickering College. I support exploring that opportunity because it would mean sharing costs, both operational and capital, on arena that they would use during the daytime hours in which Hollingsworth is currently not open. Because that's such an attractive opportunity, I say, let's look at it, let's find out if there's a deal to be had. When we get back from staff, as they're proposing, a framework, if we get one back, and we get one back, that would be the time we would say yay or nay. If you're going to say yay, I think it's fairly self-evident, it certainly is for me in the way I'm voting, that would include a motion to decommission Pickering at that time. Hollingsworth, thank you. Hollingsworth at that time. So I see this, as the mayor said, we're looking at this opportunity. Hollingsworth, no decision's been made. Furthermore, I do support what Councillor Spong and Councillor Twinney were saying or alluding to earlier, which is that if development or an agreement with San Michael Homes does not move forward, or if San Michael Homes does not move forward even under an agreement, which is another possible scenario, then a decision on Hollingsworth, absent Pickering, I think the Pickering one is interesting enough that depending on the details, it would be worth moving forward regardless of a deal with San Michael. But absent this opportunity, then I think it's back to the drawing board. And then then we say to ourselves, hang on, let's look at this. Maybe we stay with Hollingsworth for a few years. Maybe the case is for other synergies or pairings, and we should look at them all, including that site, but staff will put it all in front of us. And if it's not compelling enough, maybe we'll just hold the course for a few years, or maybe we'll redevelop that site, or maybe we'll say, actually, a scenario in a different location with that and twin facilities makes even more sense. So we'll look at that all in due time. But for now, because an unanticipated good opportunity came up, partnering with Pickering College on a facility we can share almost in perfect synergy, I think we need to look at it. And yes, if it comes back as something council would want to move on, that would obviously, I assume, mean decommissioning Pickering and then looking at our options from there. So that's how I see it anyway, and I believe that's where we're going with these recommendations.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Kerwin?
Mr. Mayor, thank you. I will be supporting the recommendations. In the year 2015, we looked deeply at this Hollingsworth proposal by St. Michael's or by Sandros. And on a 7-2 vote, we agreed to move forward with that type of proposal and have them look at it and bring it back to us. I met with the Commissioner of Community Services, Mr. McDougall, and the Director of Culture and Recreation, and they showed me the hockey numbers. This is a contingency plan. Should we move forward with the San Michael project, this gives us the ice time that we will need for all the ice events that we have in town. It's not just hockey. There are other events, ringette and so forth, where you need ice time. So this is just an excellent way to partner with a school, which we've done many times before. We're going to be looking at another event, which is artificial turf, partnering with the York Region District School Board. We're just moving in the same evolution that we've done with the Magna Center. We're providing facilities that the town of Newmarket has identified in the recreational playbook where all citizens of this town could contribute their thoughts. So we're just following that direction, and it's a backup plan, Mr. Mayor, and it's a good one, and I like it.
Thank you. Any further discussion? There being none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? That still carries. Thank you. Next item, number 6, that's the artificial turf field, report 2006-3.
I'll move the recommendations.
Okay. As the mover, Councillor Hempin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you to staff for providing this report and all the detailed information. I think this is a good opportunity to have a sports field that can be utilized in the early spring months and later on in the fall as well, and extend the season for a number of different sports. It's also good to see that the school board is coming forward and paying 50% of the capital cost to build this facility, and the other 90%, approximately $900,000, is money coming from that's been committed from DCs, from developers who have contributed to this field, and through our recreational playbook, we've identified this as a needed resource to the community. And part of our report mentions that neighboring municipalities all have facilities like this, and we're really one of the only facilities in York Region who doesn't have this type of a field. So I'm looking forward to seeing this happen, and thank you again for the report.
Thank you. Seconder, Councillor Kerwin.
Yeah, this is just a great opportunity for us, Mr. Mayor. With the artificial turf, it allows the Newmarket Soccer Club to start their practices early. It gives them a jump on the season. And not only that, they can go later. They can go into October. Even perhaps for this year, it could have gone into November. So it really opens up the season. But it's a great opportunity to partner with the York Region District School Board, once again, that we've done many, many times in the past. And you know, Mr. Service has brought this forward. He's got the background of the private sector and the public sector. And it's just well thought out, and I want to move forward on that, and the sooner we can get out there and get it in use. And we have some, it might take the pressure off some of the fields that we have that are badly in need of natural repair, Mr. Mayor. So it gives us, again, another facility for the people of Newmarket to use, earlier and later.
Thank you. Regional Councillor.
Thanks very much. Yeah, I agree with Councillor Kerwin, and I think it's an example of the discussion we had earlier today about the budget, about the ways that we're investing on behalf of residents through our budgets in enhancements and things that have been asked for through the Recreation Playbook, et cetera. So it's a great new addition to the town of Newmarket, and I know it'll be well used. You know, it's unfortunate the operating costs are the same as a regular field. I was under the impression that this grass grew slower than regular grass, but maybe not. But I do understand there's other maintenance issues that are unusual to this. But the question I have, and I'm almost positive I asked it before, but I need to hear it one more time, and we don't have a copy of the agreement, and I don't, but can somebody just assure me that at the end of the 10-year term, we are able to renew, not if both parties agree, but we're able to, that we have a right of renewal. Obviously, some terms might have to be discussed, but do we have a unilateral right of renewal? Because it's a fair amount of money to invest if it's could potentially only be a 10-year window.
Mr. Service?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, through the Education Act, the school board is only able to sign agreements for a length of time period of up to 10 years because they can't guarantee that a school will continue to operate in that location if population changes, if there isn't a need for school in that setting. They can't guarantee that a school will always exist there. So that's why they only go up for 10 years. But they have no hesitation saying that provided that there's always a school there, and that can be part of the agreement, that they will continue to renew.
So did you have discussions at all about what an agreement to renew would look like if it said subject to the school existing or remaining in that location, or no substantive changes to the
Through
to the
Mr.
land?
That would
use?
be part of the agreement, that subject to, as long as there's a school there, that we would look at renewing of that agreement, built right into that agreement. But under the Education Act, there's very specific requirements for disposition of land. And so they would have to be subject to following those rules, which means that it first has to be offered to another school board. And then if another school board isn't interested, the municipality is next in line. So we would then get that option to purchase the land.
So we're going to pursue language as strong as possible.
Yes.
Around renewal, and, I mean, preferably something that said, unless the act prohibits it, that said, obviously, in the case of a movement or, a closing of the school, but in the absence of that scenario, that we would have renewal.
Yes.
And lock that down as tight as possible under those parameters. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Sponga.
Regional Council actually raises a good point. What would happen, and I'm glad that we're pursuing some strong language there, but what would happen if the school needed to expand their footprint and the field was jeopardized, or part of the field?
Mr. Service?
How about leave you to work that out?
Yeah, I mean, that would be built within the agreement as well.
My question was, and first of all, I want to again say this is a great project. Looking forward to it. We all know the great successes of a lot of our outdoor sports, non-for-profit organizations such as football, and one always has to go any given evening into the soccer facility on New Park, and see how busy that place is. And it's just a testament to the increased number of users and people that are registering that sport. But when can we see a shovel on the ground, or do you anticipate a shovel on the ground at completion?
Mr. Service?
Through Mr. Mayor, our hope is if we achieve approval at council on Monday night, that construction would happen in 2016 and it would be open and operational in 2017.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Bazans.
And just a question with respect to the use of the field, because you mentioned soccer and football in the report, but I recall that when we were talking about this initially, we had also mentioned the fact that some of the existing fields that we have, because of drainage and some other issues, aren't appropriate for lacrosse, for example, or some of the, I guess, touch football and rugby. And I mean, I think that there are other teams other than soccer and football that would benefit from this. And so I just wanted to make sure that it would have applicability, or that other sports organizations would have access beyond just soccer and football.
Mr. Service, go ahead.
Mr. Mayor, our intention is absolutely to ensure that all user groups have access to the space, and that that we really utilize the field for the groups that often cause the most damage to natural turf fields. So the sports like football, touch football, those kinds of things, higher level soccer, the things that have the greatest capacity to damage natural turf fields would get first priority to utilize the artificial turf field.
Thank you. No further questions? Call a question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That is carried. Okay, next item, number 7, the Water Street crossing update. Report 2016-02. We have some recommendations. Alternate recommendations. Oh, there is a presentation. That's right. Thank you. I have to admit, this is a challenge, so I appreciate the presentation and the options that might come before us. So, I think we should. I'm just waiting for the railroad track. That's what Tron is doing. Go ahead.
Okay.
Sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just waiting for the cue.
Ready yet? No, go ahead, Peter. Sorry.
So good afternoon, Mr. Mayor and members of council. Mark Krzyzanowski, our Senior Transportation Coordinator, and I want to just give you a brief presentation in advance of considering item number 7. So we'll just take you through a few slides. If you could go ahead, Mark. And I'll speak to some of these points, and Mark, jump in if there's anything you want to add or if I'm incorrectly stating something. But earlier this year, staff had an update report before committee on the matter of the Water Street crossing, and at that time there were considerations regarding a pedestrian traffic signal. So at that time, when the report was before committee, the recommendation which was endorsed by committee was that pedestrian traffic signal not be pursued at that time, but rather that a pedestrian refuge island be considered as a medium-term solution to enhance pedestrian safety at this location, and that a consultant would be retained, which we did, to prepare a preliminary design and costing for options related to that pedestrian refuge island, and that we would report back to committee, which we are here today to do. In addition, at that time, there was also a recommendation to consider design options that would explore preserving a left turn movement from Water Street to Doug Duncan Drive while still maintaining and addressing the safety of the crossing. So those were the issues that we tried to address since we were before you last. Predominantly pedestrian safety is the key issue that staff are trying to address at this in response to improving the cycling and pedestrian crossings at this busy intersection. And elements that went into that consideration of course are volumes of pedestrians and vehicles, connections, where people want to go to and where they're coming from, costs, and opportunities to incorporate other elements like streetscaping or art into the design. Okay, thanks, Mark. So in the report, you'll see there are two options that are before you. Both have a island of approximately 10 to 12 meters in length and the width of about a lane of traffic. This was considerably shorter than you may recall having seen in the earlier report, where an island would have been considerably larger and even spanned part of the intersection to provide space and refuge for pedestrians as they cross in the north-south direction. The two options before you are basically, one would be an island in option one that would be closer to the bridge west of the crossing. This would allow for the left turn movement from westbound to northbound to remain, as well as the existing bus bay to remain. Unfortunately, the island, located about 25 meters further west, is not as conducive to pedestrians' line of crossing, and so there would have to be some features installed at the crossing, such as low walls or streetscaping elements to encourage pedestrians to cross further west. So there still is an opportunity for pedestrians to cross at the intersection, although it would be the intention of this design to encourage them to cross further west. Next slide. Here's just a couple of pictures that were prepared that superimpose an island onto the existing views of Water Street. And so you can see that the island is a typical pedestrian refuge island with railings that allow space for people to cross the roadway in sort of two attempts to take advantage of a gap in eastbound or westbound traffic, seek refuge in the middle, and then complete their crossing in a safe manner. You can see that in this particular location, being somewhat removed from the intersection, pedestrians would have to go on an angle away from the intersection, cross, and then return back. There are diagonal pedestrian paths that would lead to this crossing. However, as I mentioned, there would have to be some additional features that would encourage that implemented. Next slide. The second option would be a similar island, except closer to the intersection. This was meant to provide refuge in the direct line of where people want to cross or where cyclists want to cross. And it does provide a narrower crossing width You can see here that the bus bay has been filled in, and the left turn lane and the through lanes are merged into one lane. So this would provide, as I said, a more direct crossing for pedestrians, and would provide that safety at this location. The impact would be that it has impacts on the allowed turning movements. Similarly, we've provided indication of what this one would look like, where the island would be, taking advantage of some of the views available from Google Streets View. It is closer to the intersection and provides a more direct crossing. Okay. So just in conclusion, the report has this information in it, but I just wanted to highlight that between the two options, the first one does maintain the movements. It would have a reduced storage bay and taper length for the left turns. It wouldn't have an impact on the bus bay. However, it is offset by about 25 meters from the desired line of where people want to cross, and has the potential for people to still cross at the intersection in any event. The second option is more restrictive on traffic movements. However, it does provide a more direct crossing, and is a slightly higher cost due to the bus bay that needs to be filled in. In terms of traffic movements, that graphic at the bottom, and it's a little bit difficult to see the numbers, but in the middle where the two red stop signs are, in the westbound direction, there's left turns indicated in the morning peak hour of 46 left turning vehicles, and in the afternoon typical weekday peak hour of 25. So that equates to roughly about...
Could you use the mouse and just kind of direct our attention to the numbers that you're giving us? Thanks.
Just here. So that, oh, sorry, did I say westbound? Okay, I apologize. Eastbound direction to northbound, 46 in the morning and 25 in the afternoon. And this is typical weekday peak hour volumes. So that's, less than 1 a minute. Maybe arguably 1 every 2 minutes in the afternoon. Other options to make that turn, if it were prohibited completely or at certain times of the day during peak hours, would be to access Doug Duncan Drive and the parking associated in that area via Timothy Street, either from Main Street or from Prospect Street. Also at the bottom, just wanted to provide some information about the buses. So there's 54 Bayview bus and the 56 Eagle Gorman bus that service this stop, and they provide 30-minute service during peak hours and hourly service during off-peaks and weekends. Okay, and I think just the last slide, where we go from here. So subject to consideration of these two options, it's the intention of staff to refine the design, to complete the design and have a public information session. We would anticipate holding it at the community center at Riverwalk, just in proximity to the location. Coupled with comments from the public and any other comments that we received today, we could refine the design, prepare the costs, and prepare the tender package, and provide any final information back to council, either through direct reporting or through information reports. And that on that timeline, it would allow for construction to occur this year. We have indicated that we'd try to avoid the peak summer months, but try to get it in either before or directly after. I should also say that the report does come forward with staff preferring option 2, simply because it does provide for the greater safety advantage to pedestrians and cyclists. But both options are before you, and that concludes the presentation.
Okay, so we have questions in, Regional Councillor?
Thanks very much. Thank you for this. I know this has been a difficult one, and but first, it's fair just to remind ourselves of the starting point of this. We were obviously some time ago looking at the potential for a crossing of some sort, right? A lit crossing. Am I correct to say that process led us to the understanding that it would be either extremely difficult or impossible to do so at that location due to the railway tracks and the restrictions that other levels of government would put up on us?
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. That's correct, Regional Councillor, Deputy Mayor. There were a number of complexities with a interconnected signal with the railway crossing that were only found out, recently as the safety reviews of the railway crossing were coming forward and becoming known. That queuing at the railway crossing was a concern in that vehicles extending back to the tracks would be potentially dangerous, and so there would be some need to address that or even prohibit some turning movements at the intersection. The stop condition, for instance, in the westbound direction may actually have to be before the tracks, so quite removed from the intersection at Water Street and Doug Duncan. And also the cost was starting to escalate. I think it was starting to be well beyond the budget of $200,000 that was provided originally for this crossing.
So I guess my other question would be, and I'll just state front that I really appreciate the work's done. This is a tough one to solve, but I'm having difficulty with both options. I'm finding one is just too indirect, and as your own concerns as staff, that option one's just too indirect, and we'll probably still see people trying to cross one way or another, even with design, in a different way. And the other one requires the restriction of the vehicle movements in and out of the Riverwalk Commons, which is a fairly active area. And the weekday numbers are one thing, but boy, weekends and farmers markets and other things, it could be very, very difficult. So I'm struggling with that. So that leads me to the question, and I apologize for the question, but what could you imagine with different direction from council? What might a scenario look like that would be about a way to create, with staying within restrictions placed upon us by other levels of government, not only around that, but other legislation? What would it look like to create a highly pedestrian-friendly marked zone? Like I'm talking about maybe even things like lit pavers for the evening, signage, flashing lights. Like, what is there another avenue there that wouldn't have the island, but would still create a high level of awareness for the automobile and a higher level of safety? And perhaps it may need to be augmented on a permanent basis with a crossing guard, for example, for key times of the week that we would start to pinpoint, Saturday mornings, major events, et cetera. But I guess I'm curious, I'd like to hear from yourselves about what that scenario might or could look like. Mm-hmm. And also, and frankly, I know it might cost more, but I think we might have to give broader consideration. So what would it look like? Are we sure that the stop coming from east to west or coming down the hill would have to be prior to the tracks, or we believe that? And so what would the exploration of that look like in light of what we now know?
Mr. Neuhammer?
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. I think that's what led committee earlier this year to some of the concerns about the pedestrian crossing and what other options there might be. Certainly, I can see there being conflict with a signal at this location, and in the westbound direction, imagining queuing back from a stop bar. There's very little distance between that location and the tracks, so that would definitely be a concern. I guess the very short term was that paid duty officers were provided during those special events where there's a lot of pedestrians crossing in this location. And I'm just reading from our report earlier this year, it was anticipated that there would be approximately 4 to 5 such community events per year that would generate significant traffic where a paid duty officer would be provided for approximately 4 hours in duration. Costing of roughly about $5,000 per year for that sort of short-term scenario that would provide safety for crossing when it's needed the most. The longer-term option was, of course, something that might consider, how the Metrolinx Regional Express Rail provision might change the landscape in this area, either through twinning of the tracks or through grade separation. So, rather than putting a lot of money and effort into pedestrian traffic control and interconnection with the railway crossing, only to have it for naught was something that was seen as maybe too premature. And so that led us to these medium-term options and a pedestrian refuge island. Short of any other traffic control that would stop traffic, such as a pedestrian signal, to allow for the pedestrian right-of-way. In my opinion, this sort of a treatment would provide for a good transition from what it is today to provide more safety. I would emphasize that we would want to look at this as something medium-term, because we do expect something on the horizon at the railway tracks. In recommending option 2, I guess we're also mindful of the fact that that maintains the crossing at the existing location where people are crossing. So whatever might happen with the railway crossing, this still does maintain that location. So an island might not be as much in conflict with a more removed island further west. Sorry. So that's what led to the slight preference for option 2. I'm not sure if there was anything else in your question.
I was asking about whether you could think, whether you could envision a report that could come back that might outline an alternative approach that perhaps wasn't using an island, but was using other mixture of measures to create enhanced safety and awareness at that intersection. I mean, even with an island, it's not a crossing, right? It's still people have to find their way there through. I mean, so is there other avenues that wouldn't require that, with a series of other actions, as I said, light signs, different treatment on the road. I've seen lit pavers bring a great deal of awareness to a crossing. Anything like that, because I'm struggling with this one.
Yeah. No, I understand. Mark, was there anything else that you might think of that?
Yeah, excuse me, through you, Mr. Mayor. The thing you have to remember is we can't really stop traffic, so the traffic has to be free flow. So if you put anything out there, lights, colored pavers, decorative pavers, to convey people across, there might be some confusion where who has the right of way. The car should always have the right of way. If you're thinking of more like a crosswalk or a school crossing guard, that would still be stopping cars in that area, and that way Metrolinx may not approve like a crossing there. We wouldn't consider a school crossing guard as well. That's primarily for schools. So we're kind of tied with what we can do. It has to be free flow for vehicles, but yet afford some safety for pedestrians. And this is why the island, at least it gives them the opportunity to take the crossing half at a time. That's about the best solution we can come up with.
So I know there's others who want to speak, so I'll leave this. Then are we certain, I just want to be clear on this, are we certain that we can't do a crossing at that location, or is it a cost issue? Like a pedestrian crossing?
No, well, it's mostly a cost issue, and also getting the approval of the railway authority. In this case, it's Metrolinx. That has been very difficult, and I expect that would be some considerable effort and time to convince the rail authority that and under what parameters they would permit a pedestrian signal at this location.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Sponga?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for the report, and I know this is, as other members of council said, Mayor and Regional Council, it's a very difficult situation to try to address. I've tried to go back there again over the weekend and try to get an understanding in terms of why this is such a preferred location for crossing. One of the comments, and I've got a similar situation right now in Maine and Timothy, believe it or not. I think one of the problems is, and I'm just looking at it now even on Google Earth, and it's the pavement treatment that was done. A lot of it has to do with the fact that we have great activities on the north side of Water Street, excellent activities, a beautiful park on the south side, so it's just natural. There's that pedestrian traffic in that area. We also have the beautiful Tom Taylor Trail that comes through there. But I think one of the problems that we have is we treated the pavement, certain areas of Main Street and Water Street, with patterned concrete that actually gives the impression of a crossing area, of a crosswalk. And I've heard many comments that people said, oh, I thought this was crosswalk, and that's why the pavement is like that, and that's why I'm crossing here. The other thing is the blue of the Riverwalk Commons Trail that connects to the other blue directly across the street. I agree with Councillor Taylor. I was excited at first when I saw the two options about a year ago or so that we were working on with the island. But again, I believe that whether it be the island, whether it be marked pavers and so forth, we, as Mark probably said earlier, we are giving a false sense of security in terms of crossing there, because really it's not a regulated crossing. Cars are not going to stop and let pedestrians cross. And I'm almost wondering if, and I'll see where Regional Council is going with, I think he spoke earlier to potentially an amended motion. But have we given any thought in removing the stone pavers or that patterned concrete right now that gives the impression of a crosswalk in that area, and somewhat restricting or visually restricting from crossing at this point, and maybe painting the sidewalk blue to tie it into where we actually should be crossing as a temporary or midterm measure until we can work with Metrolinx. I think even when you were speaking earlier about the restrictions with the left turns eastbound from Water to Doug Duncan, and people would have to access Doug Duncan potentially from Main and Timothy, that even would exacerbate the situation and the request that I'm dealing with, and I've already brought it to the attention of your engineering department, the fact that the patterned concrete at Timothy and Main has given people the false perception that that is a regulated crossing. And so we've had several near accidents in that area as well, several complaints. And a lot of it has to do with the treatment of the pavement, unfortunately. So I'll wait to see where Regional Council is going with an amended motion. But would there be an opportunity, did we ever consider removing that patterned concrete in that area? And maybe making it clear with, I don't know, whatever, signalization or whatever, that this is not a crossing area.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I think that's something that, could be explored. I understand the patterned asphalt that has been stamped and impressed in the crossing now, and including the bus bay, may have all been done as a precursor to assuming that there might be a traffic signal in this location.
Right.
And so that was put in. Now we're at the position where, the traffic signal, if one does come in here, may be some long ways off. So that could be explored in terms of, what is safest in terms of the pedestrian crossing, and, whether an island goes in here or not, whether it still makes sense to have that impressed pattern in the pavement.
I'll be honest with you, Mr. Nohammer and Mr. Krasnowski, I'm almost tempted, to say, well, let's park the idea of the island. Let's continue discussions with Metrolinx in terms of see what, whether we can put a crosswalk there in the future. And in the meantime, at a minimum, let's eliminate the pattern sidewalk and make every effort possible to divert, and from an engineering perspective, I'm not sure how, I'm not the expert, but to divert pedestrian crossing when possible, off-peak hours where we don't have events, to regulate a crossing. And if we do have major events on weekends and so forth, then provide for crossing guard or off-duty.
Thank you.
I'll leave it at that.
Mr. Sheldon?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just before Peter joined us, I did want to mention that there was considerable talk and consideration of how to cross in that area, and it was considered at the time to see if if an effort could be made to sort of force and direct pedestrians to the Main Street signalized intersection crossing. And it was felt that that just practically would not work. There was also discussion about having free-flowing crossing. And the ultimate position that was taken, that it was felt that by channeling pedestrians to cross at one location rather than, you know, rely on them going to Main Street or just crossing at a number of, you know, unmarked locations in that area, that it was a better approach to take. So just so you do know, that was talked about as part of the, when we were dealing with the Commons, which was formerly called the CUSP, that CUSP task force with the consultant as well. And just, I know other council members wanted to weigh in on this, but if I could ask before the presentation is finished, if we could ask Peter to speak a little bit to that left turn issue, which is referred to in the report on page 34 as part of the fine-tuning of the design, that there may be a consideration to introduce that left turn under peaks, or, you know, maybe a full-time under all conditions, just to address that, whether there is an option that would permit that if that is one of your major concerns. But I think you should hear from the other council members first.
Okay, thank you. I have Councillors Hempin, Bazance, and Vague. Thank you. Councillor Hempin.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. And yeah, this has been an issue that's been front of mind for a lot of people for a long time, and a real concern for people who are using the area and come out to events. And I personally hear it quite often that we need to come up with some type of solution to create a safer pedestrian crossing in this area. I, for one, 2 years ago, I had an accident, car accident, where a car didn't see me at all and smashed into my car and T-boned me and created quite a bit of damage to my vehicle. And approximately 8 years ago at Timothy and Doug Duncan, somebody also went through the intersection and hit my wife's vehicle and created quite a bit of damage and some personal injury as well. My preference would really be to see some kind of a signalized crossing there for pedestrians, but we're hearing this is long-term difficulties, and it may not happen, and a lot of discussion will still have to be done with Metrolinx. And I, for one, it's really my preference, but would like to see in the interim, I know it's still very costly at $200,000, but if I'm being told by our traffic engineer and our staff that this is really the best solution we have, we need to come up with some kind of solution, and we need to protect pedestrians. So I will be supporting the recommendation number 2, in that we just don't have anything else unless I can hear from the two of you that, you know, we can come up with this other solution in a shorter period of time. So thank you.
Councillor Bazance.
Thank you. Just a couple of questions that I had, and interestingly enough, the questions that Councillor Sponga was raising with respect to the decorative pavers is something that I was asked by the Accessibility Committee to bring forward when Council considers the minutes of the last meeting. So this sort of preempts us having an opportunity to do that, but there was feeling the committee that the decorative pavers that are there now do give that false sense of security, and so people have been sort of proceeding through the intersection on the assumption that it's a crosswalk and that cars would slow down. So there was a direct request from that committee to re-look those pavers and consider the potential hazard that might present to some people. So I'm glad that we've had that discussion, that Councillor Sponga raised that. But my other question or comment relates to these islands, and I recognize that the objective would be to put this to public consultation and get some further input from the public with respect to the final design. But can you comment, Mr. Nohammer, with respect to the design as it is, and has it considered sort of safety features and elements from an accessibility standpoint? You know, when I look at the picture, it seems like it would be a little convoluted to maneuver if you were, using a walker or a wheelchair, and if you had to kind of hurry to get to that point, and there were a lot of people, you know, the island might get, you know, somebody would get voted off the island, you know, in an unsafe manner. So I just kind of would be interested in what consideration or safety features from an accessibility standpoint had been put into this before we wait till the final design getting further input. Thank you.
Mr. Neuhammer?
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. Very good question. Thank you for that, Councillor Bazance. So, as I mentioned, the next step would be to take these design concepts forward for some public comment, in addition to comment from yourselves, and refine the design, including undertaking further finer level of detail with respect to safety audit. Things like the appropriate pavement markings, the appropriate signage, the conformity with the AODA requirements for accessibility, the placement of railings and the opening and width of refuge areas for pedestrians, considering volumes and the like. So there will still be that refined design that will have to be undertaken, and that can include things like the use of or non-use of the patterned asphalt or pavers or whatever the case may be. So, you know, that still is going to be taken into account, and the design will reflect all of those comments with respect to the crossing and the design of the island and the crossing itself to, you know, enhance pedestrian conspicuity so that motorists are aware that this is a pedestrian crossing, even though it doesn't have, you know, a stop sign or a red light, just to make motorists more aware that, to be aware of pedestrians that are crossing. And pedestrians will still have to, you know, yield the right-of-way to vehicles, but at least there's a shorter distance and a refuge area for them to cross. Mark, was there anything else?
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor, Councillor Bazance. What you've seen in the Google Street View slides are actually a superimposed version of our existing, that's our existing William Rowe pedestrian island. That's sort of the smallest and sort of the minimalist you would see. When we were designing and developing that, that went through the Accessibility Advisory Committee at the time for size, and it also follows the City of Toronto standards. So it's already starting to meet some of these criteria. And the other aspect of this with the pedestrian island, it addresses the vulnerable road users for seniors when they're crossing these. It's indicated that the seniors can't process 2 streams of traffic. With this, they can process 1 stream, cross, and process the other. So it's already taking into some of those elements. Like I said, what you see here is probably the smallest you're going to see. We're hoping to widen and expand it so you can't get voted off the island that fast. You have more room to maneuver.
So what we're seeing here is not necessarily an accurate depiction of what we'd end up with.
It's more of a representation of location. It's like for this example, actually, you have the whole taper lane. If you look at the eastbound approach, you have the whole taper lane in front of it where you can expand it out and widen it a little bit. So there is opportunity. But what you're seeing here is just a sort of minimalist.
I should also add that, you know, when that design is refined, there would also be some consideration given to aesthetics as well. So there may be opportunities to introduce like a tree planter or vegetation or even sculpture or some element that would enhance the location as well. Just lastly, and to Bob's point earlier about the left turn restriction. So, yeah, depending on you know, the level of impact, it may be possible to explore time of day restrictions that, you know, maybe during peak hours that left turns be restricted, but other times of the day it could be permitted. You know, in particular on weekends when traffic through east-west traffic is lighter, but there's a desire to attend events at the Riverwalk Commons. So I think that's a real possibility as well, to consider a time of day restriction rather than an outright prohibition of the left turn movement.
Thank you. Councillor Bay.
Thank you very much, and I also thank you very much for bringing this forward. This is something that's been discussed literally for a decade now, and I know there are no easy low-cost solutions. So one of the things that people will always bring forward to us is why not just tunnel under there, or a trench with bridging across. I know that costs a lot more, but is that option being explored, or funding sources? I think, this first question, I think perhaps, is there any way we can look at the DC charges that we're receiving? Like, is there any way of doing that? I know it costs a lot more than an island, and I'll speak on the island later, but was that explored?
Mr. O'Hammer?
Well, maybe Mark can answer the question as to whether it was explored or not, but certainly at many of the other crossings, like at Mulock or Davis Drive, where the Tom Taylor Trail crosses, there are certainly below grade crossings or grade separated crossings afforded cyclists and pedestrians at those locations. At Timothy Street and Water Street, they are not, likely because there is no natural grade separation there already, but it would be costly, no question about it. I think the overhead or bridge type of crossing, in my opinion, would suffer from just lack of use, because people
I would agree. That's why I didn't mention it.
Yeah, people would not be willing to climb stairs or go on ramps to go up and over the height needed to clear the tall vehicles. An pedestrian or cyclist underpass, it would be costly, and frankly, I'm not aware that it was explored just because of cost considerations, but maybe Mark is.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor, Councillor Bay, you're right, it's been about 10 years. I think back in 2008, there was a report that examined what I like to call it is the over, under, around, through approach. We looked at going over and under, around the main street and straight across, and either the over or the under approach, we didn't look at cost, but it's just the operations to get down low enough at an accessible 5 to 8%. Your tunnel entrances are going to be almost back at the P1, the first parking lot, almost right to Timothy Street. So it's a huge undertaking just to be able to get the height so people can be accessible. So.
And the water table is obviously very high, with the river being right next to it. So all kinds of waterproofing would be required as well.
Okay. Well, that's good, because I know more than one person will ask me, why not just tunnel? It's so obvious. Why are you missing the obvious? Right. But so I did want to bring that forward, and thank you for that. And just a couple of comments. The option number one, I think everybody would agree that it's just too far west. It wouldn't be very well used. It might be used by those with families and small children in the carriage, or perhaps seniors. But you'll still have so many people continuing to cross where they're crossing right now. And that could also create a bit of a sense of, for the drivers at least, a bit of confusion that, wait, there's a pedestrian island there. What are all these people doing here? Or I've taken care, I've stopped at this pedestrian island. Why am I stopping another 2 car lengths again for these pedestrians that came out, even though the cars have the way? So, and in terms of option number 2, while it is much closer, it is basically there where people will normally cross, and a lot of that crossing really has to do with how nimble you are. If you're with small children or a carriage, you might really appreciate the island because it's a little bit more difficult. Certainly if you're a senior just traveling at a more leisurely pace, we'll call it that, the island will be very, very convenient. But there'll be other people, obviously, who will not use the island. Is there not any way to just move it back even just a couple of meters west so we can, I'm not sure why we're not allowing, or we're trying to restrict the left turns there, because I fear people will do it anyways, because it's so convenient to get to, from that part of town, getting to the farmer's market, and, out of habit, all these reasons. I'm just not sure why are we restricting left turns there, because I just have a feeling people will do it anyways.
Well, through you, Mr. Mayor, the main reason is just that in order to move it back to accommodate left turns, you'd have to have, you know, 1 or 2 vehicle storage area, otherwise they'd be sticking out into the through lane anyways. And by moving the island back, you're in that area close to the bridge. You know, we felt that this particular one, option 2, you know, allows you to have the island at least close to the crossing. Anything further back, whether it's, you know, at the bridge or somewhere in between, still leads to that you know, discontinuity with where people want to cross. And so it's just a question of how far you take people out of the way and whether they're going to do that. You know, I think with option 1, if that's, you know, something that you wanted us to explore further, not that we're suggesting that, I think we prefer option 2, but we would have to look very carefully at, you know, providing some features that would prevent people from crossing where they typically cross now, but direct them over towards, you know, the cyclists and people to direct them over.
Considering we have the driveway entrance going in.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think you'd be successful.
Yeah, we agree.
With that. But one thing I do like about option 1, even though it is a bit far west, it actually does give an option for those who are more comfortable having the island, as I said, those with carriages, small kids, et cetera, seniors, they will, you know, they would probably use option 1, it's, you know, because it's a bit, safety is more top of mind, and they do need that refuge sometimes. Others, frankly, will not use that, just like now. They would continue to cross. And I do agree with Councillor Sponga, whoever else mentioned it. The fact now that visually that crossing area is different than the rest of the road, even for myself, it's given me a false sense of security sometimes that you're walking along, talking, daydreaming, and that's a visual clue which you usually find at crosswalks or at traffic lights. It's unusual to find it where you don't have that controlled crossing. So it'd be great if we can kind of turn that back to regular asphalt and perhaps a bit of signing or even signage directing people to option 1 closer to the bridge. Because I think it is an option. I think a lot of people will use it. Even with option 2, I think a lot of people will just bypass that island anyways. So again, I'm looking forward to hearing the public's response when we go forward to the Public Information Center on this, but right now I am leaning towards option 1.
Thank you. Councillor Twitty?
Yeah, there's no doubt that we need to move forward in doing something in this area, and the sooner the better. Hopefully we can get something done before the season again, because it does get so busy. And perhaps this will come up in the public session as well, like for comments. But I'm just wondering, along with having an island, and I feel that option 2 is our best bet, because I don't believe that people are going to go out of their way to use option 1. So then you're going to have people crossing all over the place a little bit more. So I think it's much more of a direct route. But along with that, would we not want to look at also ensuring that the people that are driving in cars are really very aware of that this is a high traffic area, and that could be done with signage with, you know, flashing lights saying, you know, caution, high pedestrian traffic area. I've seen them in places, you know, I mean, that have, you know, just to give drivers sort of that extra sort of heads up that, you know what, keep your eyes open for pedestrians in this area. So it's just more of a comment and of something that perhaps could be done as well.
Thank you. Regional Councillor.
Are we sure that with a little extra money and a little bit more engineering on the 2 sides, there's not a solution here where option 2 exists and maintains a turning lane? Is that impossible? I just look if we could expand it somehow. And does the bus layaway lane have to be there? I mean, not all buses have a layaway lane. I mean, would that be? I'm not sure that would help any. But anyway, is there a way to engineer option 2 so that you maintain a turn lane?
That's through you, Mr. Mayor. That's a very good point and a good observation, and it's something that, you know, I think through the refined design of option 2 that we could explore. I guess in allowing the island to be there and permitting left turns in a lane, you would, if you can imagine, you'd essentially be turning the through lane into where people would turn left from.
Right.
and then the through vehicles would go around them in an area where currently the bus bay would be. So in order to continue through the intersection, we'd have to look at the far side of the intersection as you approach the tracks and whether that alignment is conducive to that divergence of path and then back into the through move. But that's something that could be explored. I think the distances are fairly short, to get that alignment, and it may feel like a swerve out, but speeds are fairly low. They should be low, so that could be explored.
Yeah, that would be very interested to see about that, but I'll wait until the report comes forward.
Thank you. Councillor Sponga?
Yeah, I was just asking, actually, Chris-Anne, if she could get an image up for us from Google Earth, Street View. Look at the southwest corner of Main and Water and Doug Duncan. And I just wanted to show you what perhaps I believe is one of the biggest causes of the misperception that there is actual there. Actually, if we could go a little bit further west, Christine. Actually, well, that's good. Perfect. Turn around a bit. If you could turn it towards Ferry Lake a bit, the other way.
Sorry.
Perfect. One of the biggest issues there, as you can see, again, touching to the point I was making earlier, and if the island is the solution, great. We have to find a solution, as Councillor Hempel said earlier. So that's the most important thing. But the issue here, again, is you see the gentleman there on the bicycle. There is a curb cut there, and the interesting thing is not only is there a curb cut, there's also the braille sidewalk thing to let you know that you're getting close to a crossing. And then the curb cut leads to a north-south patterned concrete area. And anybody that comes to that area, I mean, is convinced that that's where you cross. And if you were blind, you would definitely think that that's a crossing. So what I'm suggesting is that if the island isn't an option, and again, I'm not so sure if that is, it's not a regulated crossing. At the end of the day, we're still creating this this sense of security that isn't there. But if that curb cut wasn't there, so that you would not be able to go north and south in that area, and that was bollarded, and that pattern concrete was removed, and people were directed westbound to Main Street, I think that in itself is a solution. The problem is what we have on the ground right now, and we have everything there to lead the pedestrians to cross that point. And so I think that the first step is to eliminate those factors that are actually creating the perception that that is a crosswalk. Thank you.
Thank you. I think we made that point. Councillor Kerwin.
Mayor, when we did this survey, through you, Mr. Mayor, to Mr. Newhammer, did we look at the impact from Cotter onto Water Street? Like from Cotter, I can go right, which is south, or I can come out Cotter, and I can go north, and I can swing down and go west or east on Water Street. So was Cotter Street factored into this at all, into this project? Because Cotter Street, or the traffic from Cotter Street, impacts at this intersection, particularly when I'm going north on Cotter, and I come to Water Street, and I make a left-hand turn, and I'm going west on Water Street. Did you look at the impact on Cotter on this design?
Through Mr. Mayor, not specifically as it relates to the pedestrian crossing, but I do follow you that the traffic from Cotter Street does come onto Water and crosses the tracks and then goes into Doug Duncan Drive. I think that would be a simple right in. So I think with or without the island, that can still happen.
You see, there's a deception there. If I'm crossing there across this crosswalk here, or this raised paving stone, people are coming down Water Street. They're coming from Gorham and they're coming down Water Street, okay? But also, you know, there's a turn from Cotter that comes there too. And sometimes, you know, I'm looking up the hill and I don't see anything coming off Gorham, coming down Water. There's nothing there, but all of a sudden there is a car coming from Cotter Street. You see what I mean? It wasn't there before, but it is. And Cotter Street is used quite heavily to bypass Prospect Street. People are using that now just to bypass. Like this morning, there was trucks there on Prospect Street, so people were using Cotter. So when I was walking home, I had a look at it.
Right.
But regardless of that, I just wondered if you factored in that when you were doing this project.
Just that, you know, the east-west traffic on Water Street at Doug Duncan Drive, you know, would include the volumes from Cotter Street.
Okay,
So
it will include that.
It is included.
I'm basically, you're not going to move people. You know, Mr. Sponga says, you know, they're going to go walk up to Main Street and cross there. People who come across Doug Duncan Drive will use here. Canadians don't walk 50 meters or 100 meters or 200 meters or a kilometer to get somewhere. They'll take the easiest shortcut, and this is a natural crossing there. So people are not going to walk up to the lights at Main Street and cross there. I know that. I walk all the time. I'm in favor of moving forward on this because at least it's something. And, you know, you've spent a lot of time and a lot of thought on it. And we need to move forward to find a solution here because all of us are confronted by it. And let's have a look at what the public then says, because they could refine it even further. And the public comes in because they're the people who use this, you know, and that's like the great theory at York University. They didn't put in the sidewalks until afterwards, until they saw the direction that they saw the mud, because people took the shortcut and they crossed the grass, and once they saw the natural flow of traffic, of pedestrians, then they put the sidewalks in. So here you've got the people who use it, and you can ask them, are you willing to walk 200 meters up to Main Street to cross, or do you want to cross here? And if they want to cross here, then the solution here, in my mind, is what you've recommended, and that's option 2. So I can support this recommendation because it moves forward to a public meeting, and we're not making any positive conclusion here. And let's listen to what they say. And on that basis, as we've done with the playbook, and we did with the use of the Magda Center, and we did with the use with the turf, let the public decide what they want. So this gives us something, and we have to do something. The only thing I disagree with, there is less traffic in July and August than more. And I'll tell you why. All the school buses are off the routes at that particular time. They're not there. And a lot of people are away at the cottage during the summer, July and August, or they don't travel as much. They walk more than use their cars. So to me, the perfect time to do it is July and August. So, and you know, we've been dealing with this for decades. Something has to happen. Let's go to the public meeting. Let's listen to the public, and let's move forward and do something.
Okay. Thank you. I think we've got all the questions, so it would be appropriate to receive the presentation. Councillor Sponga, Councillor Kerwin, all those in favor? That is carried. Now let's come back to the report, 2016-2, which is the Water Street crossing. Could I have a motion with respect to the recommendations?
Put the motion on the floor, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Okay. Speaking to the motion, Councillor Sponga is the mover.
Well, putting it there for discussion. I've already discussed it, Mr. Mayor. I'm ready to vote now.
Okay. Any further comments? Regional Councillor?
Thanks. I'm still struggling with this one, and I actually would prefer to send this back to staff and get some more information, particularly on whether this can be re-engineered to allow for this option, the preferred option, and a full turn lane or movements. I'm not sure if typically if we endorse option 2 and go to Public Information Center, we go with that option. I don't know if I think what I heard council saying, but if I recall from practice, we wouldn't put forward 2 options now. We put forward the preferred option. But I think I heard some council members indicating they thought we would see two options at the public. So maybe also, can we get clarity on that? If this was moved, would we typically move forward with just that option to the public?
Mr. Normer?
It was our intention to get some endorsement of one of the two options today, but we can solicit the public's opinion in concept on both options before the final design is put forward for tender. So we could look at a crossing directly at the location of the intersection and one that's removed further to the west.
Okay, well, I'll leave that up to those members that are supporting that direction. If this doesn't move forward, I'll be putting forward a motion that we ask staff to bring back information, even if it includes an expanded budget on re-engineering this to see if it's possible to have a turn lane and the option 2, or to fully explore a signalized intersection and the costs associated with that. And I'll just be blunt, I think that these are both difficult. I think the public will find them very unusual. I think option 1 they will find very unusual, and option 2 will mean that there's no turn movements at that point. And I had somebody say to me the other day, Main Street is incredible. I just wish there was less traffic on it. And I know traffic's good for stores to a degree, but you start driving all this traffic, especially during large events, to get to the Riverwalk parking down Main Street, which a lot of it will do. Some will go to Prospect. The majority will go to Main. I think it's going to be very, very, well, regardless of where the majority is, it'll be a lot. So I'm very concerned about that scenario, and I can't support it. I know we need to find a solution. I know we've been working on this a long time, and I don't blame other members of council for saying we got to do something, because it is important. But I think we need to find the right solution. And for me, that's one that either involves re-engineering of that intersection to a larger degree to accommodate both turn movements and an island, or a really hard, long look at and investment in a signalized intersection. I know we're concerned about Metrolinx, but I'll tell you, the chance that Metrolinx is going to grade separate at this street, in my opinion, is very low to not a chance. So I think we could probably take some risks in investing, minor risks in investing more heavily. And finally, I'd like to say this. I know what everyone's saying and we have to think about it, but from an accessibility perspective, a safety perspective, the fact that we create a greater sense that this is a crossing by the treatment right now, to curb it and to take all that away and pretend it's not a crossing, it is a crossing. And no matter what we do, people are going to continue to cross there. And major events, even with an island, they're going to ignore the island, they're going to keep going right across. So I wouldn't be too quick to sort of pretend it's not there. And I'm not saying that's exactly what people are saying, but I'm nervous about the balance between not encouraging people, but pretending it's not there. So anyway, my preference is to, and I know people get frustrated going back to the drawing board, but on this one, I'm just not comfortable with these solutions, and I prefer to go back to the drawing board. If we do go to Public Information Center, I hope we can go back on including the option for the public to look at other options, i.e. these two things, and the public can say, actually, you know what, I'd rather take the time and do something that looks at other ways of addressing it. Thank you.
Question, Mr. Nohammer. Putting a third option in, which would permit the left turning, is that possible within the same timeframes and without, so having a third option? Could we explore something like that for a PIC? And is that a consideration?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I think that's doable. I think it's basically a variation of option 2. So, it's sort of option 2 modified with if possible, to put a left turn and a through lane in. As I said, I do, without exploring it further in the geometry, I think the distances are short. We may find that just the tapers and the way in which people have to transition from through back into a lane might be too abrupt, but we'll look at that. So I think it would be, an option 2 modified. I just did want to say that, I guess if we do ask the public's opinion whether they would rather have an island or a pedestrian signal, I think there's no question as to what they'll say. So I think it's, I just don't want to sort of give, the false hopes that it's, you can have this either one this summer, so.
I definitely didn't mean say that's the option. I meant say the other option is to not move forward and look at either a modified option 2 or the possibility of a pedestrian signal, but not that, and make it clear, we can't guarantee this, but we'd rather, and I know that gets a little complicated, but how would we, if we can't, option 2 modified, if we want to call it that, or option 3, we don't know yet whether that exists, right? So you would find that out later and we'd hear, and you'd either go with 2 or 3, or you can tell us by council meeting, or I doubt that.
Yeah, so I mean, at this point, I think, you know, what I'd like to suggest is that if you want to refer back to staff to explore options 1, 2, and 2 modified, and seek public's comment on that, then we could report back to committee on the results of those comments and the costs associated with those options.
Sorry, but is there not a possibility before going to the public you could discover that option 2 modified is not possible?
Yeah, yeah.
So then we wouldn't be going with that?
Yes, yes, then we could advise you of that.
Mr. Sheldon?
Mr. Mayor, just listening to the discussion, I would suggest that if you're, as a majority, if you're leaning towards option 2, that you provide us with the direction to further refine option 2 to see if it is possible to incorporate a left turn and to report back to you. And that way it would be nice and clean going out to the public when we do that. If it takes another cycle, I think that this one's complex enough to require that.
That makes more sense, because I think generally the consensus is that option number 1 probably is not a practical option. So option number 2 with those modifications. I'll ask the mover and the seconder.
I find it a friendly amendment.
And who was the seconder? You were the mover? Okay. So you find that as a friendly amendment?
Absolutely.
Yep. Go ahead.
Yeah. I think we have to look at the option of the left turn. And I'm sure that you've done a lot of extensive studies, but when you have large events like the Jazz Festival, Farmers Markets, Caribbean, South Asian Festival, the lighting of the lights and Christmas and so forth, we closed Timothy Street. So I experienced it a couple of times when Timothy Street is closed and there's no access northbound to Doug Duncan from Water Street, then you cannot, the only point of access into P3 and the Riverwalk parking lots north of Timothy are through Prospect, and the only exit point is through Prospect, because Cedar Street is one-way north, and if you cannot make a left turn from Water onto Doug Duncan to get to the Riverwalk Commons, and there is a major event, Timothy Street would be closed and Main Street as well. So then the only access point on weekends and Saturdays during a major event would be Doug Duncan, and that would create chaos. And so for that reason, I was saying earlier, I'm very reluctant of the options in front of us, and the fact that the left turn is being restricted, it becomes operationally really a nightmare to try to have a large event there when then your only access point to the Riverwalk Commons by car and for emergency vehicles for all intent and purpose would be Doug Duncan. So I find that more than a friendly amendment, but definitely.
Okay, thank you. So that's a very friendly amendment. Yeah. Councillor Vey?
Thank you very much. If we can find an option that includes left turn, that's absolutely wonderful. But a question just regarding the timing of the PIC. Our PICs, some are notorious for not being very well attended, even though people have identified these as important issues. Since we've been working on this so long, and let's get it right, maybe I can suggest, and perhaps we can take it as an amendment, that we actually hold the PIC in early in the third quarter and just do that right at Riverwalk Commons and have a display there and let people see what we have planned and give their comments, because that's the only time it's real top of mind during an event, during a farmer's market or something, when you have a lot of people who are crossing because we have an event in Fairy Lake and we have an event at at Riverwalk Commons, or perhaps if we will park to Fairy Lake. But that's really when it's top of mind to people, and that's when we're going to get lots of great feedback, either people endorsing the idea, saying this is brilliant, thank you, should have done it 5 years ago, or looking at it and say, why are you doing it that way? So that's just a question on the timing. I personally don't feel in a big rush whether it's built before this spring or if it's built in the fall. But I think we would get a lot of very good public feedback on that, and letting people know that we're concerned about this, we care about this, and it just seems like an ideal time and place to do a PIC. PICs don't necessarily have to be in our buildings on Tuesday nights.
That might be a consideration for direction to staff. I think the intent was to have it down in the community center lands. So
it had it here in the first quarter, and I was suggesting at that time.
So timing might be a different thing. Okay. So a more appropriate time. Okay, thank you. Now the other thing that if we had the island there in the left turn, it might be just as easy for us if we currently are having people directing traffic to let pedestrians through, to manage traffic on those heavy days or on those busy days during those events. And so that might be another option to consider is that if we create the island where it is, then we should have some traffic controlling and have someone direct traffic at that time, so that we'd still have the level of safety that we have now, but that would be an enhanced spot for people where they can find refuge when they're crossing. So it's another option to consider. So we have the motion as amended, and we've had sufficient discussion. I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? And that is carried. Thank you. It's been a challenge, Peter and Mark, and I'm not sure we'll ever get an answer that will fully satisfy all we want to accomplish, but at least we're making some progress in trying to make the corner a safer intersection for us. Thank you very much.
20.
Okay, item number 20, site plan review. Regional Councillor.
I'll move the recommendations, get them on the floor.
Is there a seconder? This is the. Okay, Councillor Carwin, thank you. Speaking to the motion.
Thanks. Just to staff, can somebody help me understand this site plan and the issue that I raised at site plan about how to coordinate with the region to explore the opportunity for a skateboard park at this location? Skateboard parks have, as Tom Ave pointed out to me one time, have been very successfully co-located with emergency services, be that EMS, police, or both. And also that this, in Richmond Hill, they've been co-located with the storage facility. But I guess I'm just worried about letting the opportunity go, and then it just becomes another conversation with, about something we can do in the future. So is this sufficiently embedded in the process now from our perspective that we can move forward and be confident that, and should it be, are there design considerations that, because it started, I think about, we're going to move forward pretty quickly also on the snow storage. So are there design considerations that need to be considered now, and should we slow this down a little bit, or is there risk in slowing it down? But anyway, some help on understanding how we can ensure this is considered now with this, and not just an interesting idea that maybe gets lost in the wash.
Mr. Neuhammer.
Yeah, well, at Site Plan Committee, through you, Mr. Mayor, Regional Councillor, Deputy Mayor, you did raise that. I think it came as a little bit of a surprise to the people that were there presenting the application on the EMS station, but they did commit to taking it back and considering it as part of their site plan application. You are correct that the application for the snow storage site is advancing, and that will be coming forward sooner rather than later, and we expect it very soon. But I'm just wondering if, Jason, whether you have any more information as to how the applicant might be addressing this, and as staff, how we're going to be reviewing the site.
Mr. Unger?
Thank you. Through Mr. Mayor, if I recall correctly, I believe the discussion on the skateboard park wasn't necessarily to come with the EMS, but it might be considered as part of either the snow storage site plan application or a future police station. So I don't believe there's anything in the minutes dealing with the approval in principle that's before you today on the EMS. Now, they haven't come back with a, like their sort of next stage of drawings yet, obviously. They are, the region is in with the official plan amendment and zoning bylaw amendment application for the snow storage. So that's the first stage, so that'll be circulated, and we'll deal with the land use, and then the site plan would follow, so there's that opportunity. And then obviously a future site plan application for the police would be another opportunity. We're expecting a call back from the region. They were going to take it back and sort of thrash it about and then come back and talk to us about whether or not it's something they would consider as part of the snow storage or a future, or whether even they think it's a good location. But we haven't heard back from them yet. So the opportunity isn't lost, but I don't think there was an expectation that it would be dealt with through the EMS application.
So would there be, yeah, not necessarily the EMS application, but certainly I wouldn't want to wait till the police application because I think it's really tied to the snow storage. And I guess what I'm not sure of is there even design considerations right now vis-a-vis snow storage if snow storage was going to potentially also double as a skateboard facility. And so would there be any harm in putting in a recommendation here that the site plan requests or the committee of the whole requests the region to clarify how and when full consideration for accommodating a potential skateboard park at this location would occur? Let's just keep it alive and on the record.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I don't believe there's any harm in doing so, and they were sort of put on notice, whether it was just sort of through discussion. So I don't believe there's any harm in doing that.
Okay, I'd like to just add that if that's all right then.
And that was,
that the region of York be requested to clarify the process and the timing related to a decision, or not a decision, really timing about the opportunity for a skateboard park at the snow storage or on this site.
Now, do we have a second for that? Oh, yeah, that's Councillor Kerwin. Okay, is that friendly?
sure, absolutely.
Okay. Any further discussion?
To maximize the use of our land.
The only thing I'd like to just add, if I could, because it's somewhat, but this, there's been discussion about this. Councillor Vague raised it and with me some time ago, and Mr. Mayor, you mentioned about the Richmond Hill site, and I think there's an interesting opportunity to, look at the option that others have in other jurisdictions about co-locating with police because of the great environment it creates for this kind of facility to use a new public facility to its fullest. Snow storage is only really useful as a space in the winter, and this could be an opportunity in the summer. Apparently, Richmond Hill has had some success with this, and so I think it's in our recreation playbook to examine this. So it's a great opportunity to maybe fast track in a more efficient manner, something that we've been hearing about frankly for a decade from residents. And so I'm looking forward to seeing where this could
Mr. Sheldon?
Again, I think it's a great idea to put it in there, and you're talking about consideration for the incorporation of a skateboard facility in the snow storage facility.
I just think I'd like to put and/or on this site.
Okay.
Because there is this idea that some of them right against our police station.
Yeah.
And I don't know what the right answer
Yep, they may be close, but yep, no, that's fine.
Okay, great. And I think Mr. McGregor was the CAO of Richmond Hill when they developed that concept, so he'd be quite familiar with that. Yeah. Okay, any further discussion?
Commissioner, yeah.
All those in favor? That is carried. Any opposed? None. Okay, last item, I believe, is the list of outstanding matters, item number 23.
Yeah, I'd just like to, proceed. For you, just to ask our CAO, item number 20 on the list of outstanding matters, once again, is dealing with property. And you mentioned earlier that we're going to have a common meeting looking at all properties that we possibly may buy or may not buy or that we're interested in. Is that correct? And this could be included because in order for me to move on certain issues, I need to know about other issues. So it's a domino effect for me.
Mr. Sheldon?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There are a couple of opportunities that are planned for the future. One is a workshop looking at facility needs, and that will have a property component to it. And the other one is an update on property considerations from our legal department. So they are both coming up within the next, well, let's say within the first quarter of this year.
Okay, that's what I was after, Mr. Mayor. It's just information.
Yep.
Thank
And,
you.
Just as a matter of interest, I would expect that we should set a lot of time aside, because there's a lot of different scenarios that we need to give some thought to. So maybe the earlier that we know the date, the more certain we can be of our tenure. But I'd set a full day aside if we could, a morning and afternoon. Yep. Councillor Kerwin, then are you moving the recommendation, which is to receive? And second, and Councillor Twinney on item number 23.
Yeah, just a quick question regarding the outstanding matters on item 20. It talks to the public process for public consultation for Hollingsworth. Do we have a date yet for that? I think it says Q1, right? So that would be, I'm just wondering when we would expect getting a date, because there's got to be a certain time frame, right, to let residents know?
Mr. November?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, as staff, we were working with our consultant, Mr. Webb, on trying to postulate when that would be, and we were shooting for a date in February, given that we do need to have the detailed concept plan back from the proponent, and also need to tie up some information with respect to the partnership with Pickering College. I don't know whether that date might still be achievable, given some of the information isn't in hand yet, but we are hoping for some time in Q1, and as I said, we were shooting for February, but it seems a bit aggressive now.
Okay. Great, thank you.
We've dealt with the action items. Reports from regional representatives. Oh, sorry. All those in favor of the outstanding matters? Any opposed? That is carried. Thank you. Reports by regional representatives. At this time, notices of motions or motions? None. Thank you. New business. Councillor Kerwin.
Yeah, just a comment, Mr. Mayor. I had the opportunity after we passed our budget to walk through the town, and I must compliment our operations department. I was able to walk on all the sidewalks, able to walk through College Manor, back up through Mulock, and as far as I'm concerned as a pedestrian, they've done a great job, and almost immediately. One concern I have, and I think it's being addressed, is the bridge that goes from Sheridan Court over into College Manor. The Bogart Creek is rising. We have had floods come over that bridge. It's an area that I have concern about. The bridge isn't high enough, actually. And I know they're going to be doing a new bridge there shortly, or this year. I think we have to monitor the Bogart Creek in the next couple of days if we get a lot of freezing and thawing, because the water was almost close to the top. So it's just a precaution to our staff to monitor that bridge from Sheridan Court into College Manor.
Thank you. So we're off to a great start. We've got a lot of things on our plate. I think we've dealt with quite a bit today. Some very substantive decisions, and I appreciate council's patience in seeing that through. So, motion to adjourn. Councillor Sponga, Councillor Kerwin, all those in favor? Any opposed? That's carried.
Thank you.
Okay, that's off. That's